Hello, everyone. Welcome to the All Things Good podcast. Once again, I am your host, Giovanna Sugrillo, and I'm excited to tap into today's topic. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am your host, Giovanna Sugrillo, and I'm excited to be with you today. Today, I have a special guest on. You may have heard us work together in the past. Her name is Iliana Rodriguez. She's such a sweetheart. She's a great person. I love her. I promise we clicked. We've known each other for a couple of years, but we never really had a conversation. We never conversed. We never went back and forth. Just a hi, bye, maybe like a picture, whatever the case might be. We finally connected, and I promise you, I feel like she is my sister from another mister. She's amazing. She has a great personality. She has a great heart. And we have like so many things in common. It's ridiculous. And I'm excited to have her on. She is a former pastor of Divine Providence and Outreach Recovery Church and praise team leader. So today I want to talk about dancing, the importance of dance and connecting that to mental health, the importance of releasing movement into the atmosphere to recalibrate our mental health. Like when we think about dance, I want you to think about therapy because dancing is therapy. And I've watched Iliana perform. I don't like to use the word perform, especially when it connects to God, but release her ministry onto God. And I want her to talk about just the importance of dance and how it connects to our mental health, those moments where it helped her to overcome certain situations, certain battles, and how dancing actually brought her into another place mentally. But before we get into all that, how are you, Iliana? How are you doing? What have you been up to? Tell us what's going on. Tell us about who you are, what you're doing now before we get into the whole connecting of mental health.
Hi, Giovanna. I am so happy to have this conversation with you. And I'm telling you, when she says that we connect on so many levels, it is scary, it is bittersweet, scary in a good way. And I'm just so happy that we can, even with our busy schedules, that we can have this conversation and we can share our lives, little bits and pieces here and there, and give each other advice and just be uplifting to one another. There's so many haters. There's so many bitter people out there in the world. Or, just being afraid to be a friend. And I get to that place sometimes where it's even hard to be a friend. So Giovanna's made it so easy to be a friend to her. She's just great. You can tell her whatever. She always has something enlightening to say and just relatable to whatever it can be. And it's just refreshing, Giovanna. Thank you so much. And yeah, nowadays, I'm getting back into the dancing again. Now that I'm in Florida, I'm in the elements. I always wanted to dance by the beach, which I just went, we just had a dance, my husband and I, at the beach last weekend, which was awesome. We did oceans. So it was so appropriate, and it was just kind of out of the blue. But, I've been getting myself out there more because it needs to happen. It is in me. It is something, like you said, with mental health. It's just, I am free to express myself, and it does definitely help with mental health. And I'm working for an attorney. I've been a paralegal for many years, for over 27 years. I do real estate closing. I'm the to-go real estate closing, sales and purchases. I review your title work. I do your numbers. I review your numbers. I hold your hand all the way through. Also, anything having to do with short sale, foreclosures, and also personal injury claims, pre-suit claims, negotiating with the insurance companies and all that. So that's something that I've done. And that's what I came back to now. Before then, I was on the road for 3.5 years, Giovanna. We can get into this whole conversation on that. Over-the-road truck driver. I drove an 18-wheeler with my husband for 3.5 years and saw all the states a couple times. The West Coast is amazing. California, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, those were my favorites. Montana, it's just beautiful. If you guys could ever do a trip, it doesn't always just have to be on a cruise on an island. Just go to Arizona, go to New Mexico, go to Montana, go to Utah. It is amazing, the landscape. Just a little piece there for everyone if you're looking to travel. So, dance did come as a mental health thing way back when I was, 6-7 years old. So it did start from mental health, and then it came into ministry later on in life, which thank you, Jesus, for that. I still like to dance my regular music. You can catch me at home cleaning and dancing. It's just part of, I feel that it's part of being free, part of still being able to move your body. Just a happy moment. We live our lives too stressed about everything else. And dancing to me is just a way to say, you know what, I'm alive.
I absolutely love your last statement. You said, dancing reminds me that I'm still alive. That should be a post. You need to create it and you need to put your name on it. Dancing reminds me that I'm alive. That's so good, because how many of us are going through the motions right now? I mean, we're living a program, routine, day-to-day life, work, home, homework, and not having any form of joy. And so dancing really does bring about joy. When you look at dancing, you can't see someone dancing and be like, wow, they have no life in them. You have no joy. When you see dance, you automatically think joy. I mean, people dance when they have food. Like, I get excited and I'm like, I have a little piece of chicken and I'm ready to dance. It's a sign of joy. It's a sign of life. And let me tell you, I personally went through a season where I stopped dancing. I just put it to the side, and it was something that I always did. My mother used to tell me, and I remember, you're always dancing, whether it was commercials, whether it was jingles, whatever it was, I was singing and I was dancing, and I was always just on the move, moving. And so as a kid, you think about that and it's like, it's cute. Even now, as we see kids dancing, we see that there's a form of life. There's joy. There's, there's life flowing through them. And so I want to know, Iliana, how are you in this season? I mean, you just stated that you've done all these things and you're still doing some of them, and you're now getting back into dancing. How has this dancing now, after being on the road as a truck driver, being a paralegal, doing all these things that you do, wearing all these multiple hats, how has dancing impacted you now, like your mental health? I'm sure that all these things can be stressful and fun at the same time, but you said you just did a dance. I would like to know, you said you're just getting back into it and you used to do it back then. How did it help you back then? We're going to talk about the past and we're going to talk about now. Because time has passed, things have changed. You're a different person from the person you were before. But I want to know, how did dancing bring about the person that you were back then? How did it get you to the place of healing? How did it get you to the place of overcoming trauma and overcoming any situations that you may have struggled with back then?
Joanna, thank you for asking that question. Actually dancing, as far as I remember, when I was like 4 or 5 years old, I was always dancing, back in the 70s to Edie Chacon. It was always, wanting to dance to Grease, the movie Grease, like all the movies, all the dancing movies. I was always wanting to watch the dancing movies. Now, growing up in a dysfunctional home, unfortunately, there was a lot of stuff going on. I was always in the room, like just watching dance movies or recording and dancing. And when I was in high school, or when I was in grammar school, I remember being bullied because of my weight and being called names. But then, there was this one talent show where I was one of the only ones that would dare to dance in front of people. So that kind of helped me to stop being bullied, because I was now seen like courageous or one of the cool kids or stuff like that. So, starting in 8th grade, it was like a way out. It was one of my way outs of not being accepted, but just standing out, I guess. And as an adult, it was always, I don't know, mentally going through a lot of rough patches and depression, and just daily living with having to have been with parents that were, in substance abuse and domestic violence and stuff like that. I feel like music helped me to get away from the situation that was actually around me, and provided me like that fantasy place where everything was happiness. I remember certain songs that was like, like Madonna back in the day, like I Just Want a Holiday, or all night long, and being young, just wanting to be happy all night long, or just, it represented a party, and it represented not being in stress, pain, or depression. So yes, dancing was that way out. And when I found the Lord back in like 20 something years ago, those was one of the things, like when I didn't know faith and Christ and everything and the blessings and the everything that comes with God's blessings and believing in Him. I didn't want to go to church because I believed that, I didn't want to give up dancing. I didn't want to give up part of who I've always been. And I, foolishly enough, I had the most foolish prayer, Giovanna. I'm even embarrassed to say it, but I can tell you that I had told God, I said, if you want me to go to church, I guess I'm going to have to be in a wheelchair if I can't dance, because I just can't do it. And, actually, as a testimony, when I went to the church that I went to, it's Agape in Patterson, my spiritual father, Pastor Kuykendall, it was a big part of my life when I decided to give my life to Christ. Confessing Jesus Christ as Lord, I also renounced or denounced dancing. I was like, I'm never going to dance again. The religious spirit, I'm never going to dance again. But, God is so big, I don't care. So after being in the church for about 9 months, literally 9 months, it's like the month of birth, I used to go to the 8 o'clock service. So one day I decided to go to the 11 o'clock service, and the praise team came out. And I think they were wearing purple, if I remember correctly. But I remember just seeing them come in and dancing, and I was just uncontrollably like crying, like, God, there's dancing in this church. I was like, oh my God. And I was crying. I was like, Lord, you're giving me dancing back. This is where I need to be. This is who I am. This is what I'm doing. And I was just so overwhelmed with joy. Like, now I can dance for the Lord. It was such a gift to be free from myself and thinking that dancing was such a sin, but to be able to worship and give it to God and let Him perfect it, and, not feel guilty anymore that I've matured since then. I don't see dancing as sin per se, but to worship God, it was so amazing. And, so that's why it's such a big part. And now that, my husband, it brings us together. It gives us something to do, to practice. It gets us to prayer. It helps us with intimacy with one another, something more to relate to. And the fact that, he enjoys doing this with me. It's always been one of those things where I was like, if I'm married, I would like my husband to dance with me. I've always admired couples dancing. So coming to the present day, I'm just happy that I can do that again. I never want to stop dancing. I don't care if I'm 80 years old. If I can still move, I still want to dance. I still want to praise the Lord. And, it is worship. It is a way out of your situation. It's a part of happiness. Like I said, it relates to being alive, and it's also good for exercise. And it's just, I don't know. It's just part of who I am. That's all I can basically say. It's always been part of who I am.
That is so good. Your testimony just displays the goodness of God. I love it. So what I'm hearing from you is that dancing has helped you remain in joy. It was your escape route from toxic environments, and it helped you with your depression. I need my listeners to hear this because we often overlook dancing as an actual act of therapy. Not just for yourself, but for those around you. Because Iliana, listening to you, you stated that the dancing brought about a closer intimacy with you guys. And many couples desire a deeper intimacy with their partners, emotionally, mentally. And when we think about dancing, it's a form of vulnerability. You're humbling and exposing yourself in front of people, in front of others, in front of God, whatever your belief system is. It's a place of vulnerability. It's a form of vulnerability. And a lot of people fear being vulnerable. They fear being exposed. They fear of being, just put out there. And when you dance, you're just letting everything go. You're moving, there's a free flow. And I believe that the most form of vulnerability is in the free flow dancing, where there's no routine, there's no agenda. It's just you releasing, and you're moving and you're flowing according to the beat. You're moving and you're flowing according to the spirit of what God is leading you to do, of what you are feeling in your spirit to do. And that is the most vulnerable, most intimate, most impactful form of dance. Now, this is not to shun any other form of dance, but I'm saying when it comes to this specific dance, when you're just letting loose, you can bring such a healing to yourself, to your spirit, to your mind. You can release so much bad and negative energy and bring about a positive energy, a positive atmosphere. You begin to change things and shake things and break things that are holding you down, whether it be depression, whether it be anxiety, whether it be sadness. It brings about life. And so I want my listeners to know that, maybe you haven't tried everything just yet. Maybe your relationship could use a dance class. Maybe you can use a dance class. Maybe you don't even need a dance class. Maybe you just need to turn the music up and begin to just flow with whatever sound you hear. And you never know what will happen. You never know that depression that you have been feeling begins to break off. You never know that sadness that you are feeling so deep in your heart, that grief will begin to shake off as you begin to move your body. When I think about dancing, I think of just the Spirit of God flowing through us. So just look at a piece of leaf. Look at a leaf or the grass. When the wind blows, it moves according to the wind. It moves according to the flow and the movement. You see leaves dancing on the ground, and you see, grass moving. You see trees clapping their hands. All these things are just the expression of dance, the expression of moving with the rhythm, moving with the beat, moving with the flow, and allowing the sound and the movement to bring healing, to bring forth a freedom, a sense of joy, a sense of peace. So you bringing that up about you and your husband, I think that's just amazing to see. And I want people to see that maybe you just haven't thought outside the box. Maybe your relationships need to change. Maybe you need to put some spice into it. Go take a dance class, go dancing. And maybe you don't want to go out. Maybe you don't have the finances to book a class. Put on the music and dance inside the house. I always said that. Me and my husband, we're going to dance inside the house. We're going to dance. We're going to slow jam. We're going to do jazz, whatever the case might be, because I love dancing and I feel like it's a form of connection and a form of therapy. And so, yeah, that's a little bit off topic, but being that you mentioned that for you and your husband, I think that's amazing. And I think many people need to listen to this and they need to know this. So when you, Iliana, dance, what emotions have you felt? What breakthroughs have you, gone through when it came to dancing? If you could maybe share a story where it's not too intimate, not too deep, because I don't know what level of vulnerability you're in, but just give me an example, a story of how dancing changed a situation around in your life.
It's funny that you can say about emotions. And I'm going to backtrack a little bit. I get emotional when I talk about these things, and even having this topic. It brings back a lot of wonderful, beautiful, joyous moments, but it also brings back a lot of painful moments. Now, I talk about it, and I know I'm glad you said, if you don't want to be vulnerable, it's really hard. Like everybody always talks about the inner child, and I had the most toxic childhood that anyone could even imagine. Like I know people always like, oh, my life could be a movie. The life that I lived as a child, and my dad, may he rest in peace, God bless him. He loved me so much, and he was, my parents loved me. That wasn't the point. The point was they were young. They were into some things, substance, alcohol. There was domestic violence. They were always working. I was with my grandmother, and I know I just wanted to have to tell you this. There was a lot of times I was with my grandmother. My grandmother was great, but there was all this toxic, her not liking my mom, and my grandfather not liking my dad, and everybody blaming each other for, like, they didn't want my parents together. It was just a little nuts. And I remember now that I was 4 or 5 years old, just all this background noise, right? Background noise, remember. Now, in the background noise, I also had, dancing to Grease, singing, singing the movie, all these little movies that I can think of, like Annie and, The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow, and the breakdancing movies. And I'm just trying to see, like, the timetable as how this developed. There were many times that I was just in the room. I wanted to be a dancer, and I would, like, just disappear into another life, like into another realm. In the dance, like I just would see myself in this big platform and just dancing, and life was great, and everything else that was going on in life wasn't happening unless they were like knocking on the door telling me to lower the music, and or whatever fight, whatever argument, was my dad getting arrested, was my mom would leave for days at a time, was not home, and I would have to take care of my dad. There was all these other things, but then there was the dancing, or there was the Bruce Lee movies that, I wanted to be a kung fu fighter and all that. All these things that at an early age, it almost felt like I knew that I needed to escape from where I was at just to have a moment in time. And I can cry about this, to feel that peace. Because when you're a child, I had the background, the Christianity, my grandparents. But, when you're a child, you think it's corny and stupid. You don't even know who God is. You just think it's all these rules, regulations, and you can never have fun until you're older enough to understand that. But even in, I would just pray, tell God to protect me. That's as far as my prayers when I was a child. But the dance was always something to escape to. So as an adult, and it being in praise and worship, and even, listening to certain secular music that, and I'm going to say it, certain artists and music that I love music, whatever, romantic music, all these music, there's just this big debate on should you be listening to secular music. I believe that if the music is not taking me to a dark place in my heart and my soul, and it's not foul language or whatever you want to call it, I'm going to listen to certain music. I'm like, Lord, I know that God is bigger than that he's not going to judge you over, because you're listening to certain music. Those are also his children, the people that are singing, the artists. So if it's not bringing me to a dark place, I will enjoy every single type of music that I can listen to. So coming back to this with, dancing with my husband, we've been through so much. It's been, 11 years, and I'm going to say, we've broken up a couple times. We have 10 kids together, and at one time we had 8 in the house. So we've had some devastating things and horrible, traumatic trauma things happen with all the kids, and, me being a stepmom and his family, I'm not really liking me too much. I'm very military when it comes down to, raising a child. So the kids had so much horrible things to say about me as a mother. But then now that they're adults, as a matter of fact, they're all at the house now. And, one of my stepson, or he said, I'm glad I was raised that way. And it's just amazing. And my other kids are in the military, and my personal kids, they all, have a business, they work hard, they're in different states, they help me out. They're just all my kids, his kids, they're loving kids, and they love us. But they also, when you're trying to raise kids, it almost killed our relationship because you're trying to balance all these things. So again, dance was just like, okay, like I tell my husband, papi, come on, let's do a song. It takes us away from where you're at, and it puts your focus on something else. And then when you have God in the midst of it, not because we're angels, but because we're asking God, just help, just it brings us into a place of worship and a place of remembering him, and just getting away from that space that can suck you in, suck you dry, make you bitter and angry, and make you want to give up on life. And it takes you away from work and the chores and the arguing, and, it just takes you away for just 5 minutes in a song. And I think that that's what we're missing sometimes. We always talk about dancing in a negative way sometimes, with clubs and everything that it could be negatively. But we also don't talk about how it can be healing, and how it can be a way of stepping away from not enjoying the life that God wanted us to have. And I'm glad that you said about, the leaves dancing and the trees clapping, or, the way you said it so eloquently, because yes, we forget to just enjoy existing.
You are absolutely correct. We forget to enjoy life. We forget to enjoy what we have and the things around us. And we have been given this resource. And I'm not going to say that if you have, emotional or mental challenges, that you should not seek therapy. I'm not saying that you shouldn't seek therapy or seek help. You should know the level that you are on. But I am telling you that there are resources that God has given us, resources in our very home that we can utilize to begin to get over a hump of depression, maybe get over a hump of grief, or even bring forth a reconciliation with your spouse or your loved ones by just dancing. We overlook it, and it's something that has been given to us. And I want my listeners to right now just stop and pause. Stop what you're doing and let loose. Put on a sound, put on some music. Actually, I'm going to put some music for you right now, and I want you to let loose. Now that you have danced and you've released whatever type of negativity that you've been holding on to, how do you feel? I want you to really ask yourself, how do you feel? What is it that is going through your mind? Has there been some type of weight lifted off? Have you laughed? Did you enjoy it? Did you laugh? Did you giggle? Did you, smile? Take note of those feelings and apply them again and again. Do this again and again, over and over again, until you feel something break off. I can see in the spirit that some people are going to start dancing and things are just going to break off of them, and they're going to start crying and they're going to start weeping, and things are just going to change in their life because they decided to move their body and shake off everything that has been hindering them. Well, that about wraps up this episode. I want to thank you so much for listening to the All Things Good podcast. I hope that you share and send with those around you. And remember to keep your mind focused on all things good. Until next time, I'm your host, Giovanna Sugrillo.